Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Monday, May the 19th, 2025, and today we're going to talk about terminating cover crops and how to farm and garden for the long haul. So let's do it. All right. Well, happy Monday, everyone. Thank you to everyone who reached out after yet another series of catastrophic storms hit my state of Kentucky, this time in the form of yet another round of tornadoes that have left at least 27 dead across the region and countless homes and businesses destroyed. In the late 2010s, I started to read reports that what we call Tornado Alley here in the States was shifting or had shifted several hundred miles to the east, and that is very much what we are seeing now. Storms that are producing numerous tornadoes in areas that are not at all prepared for tornadoes. Unlike Texas and Oklahoma, for instance, Kentucky does not have a lot of storm shelters. We have loads of trailer parks, which are incredibly vulnerable. My area of the country is just not a place set up for this type of weather. So when it hits, the heartbreak is amplified. I feel sometimes that I am sort of shouting this into the void, but I genuinely believe we could address this intensification of weather, even to a small extent, with the way we farm, the way we manage the land, the way that we manage water, the way that we manage forests, the way we live. We could address this through preparing these towns instead of ignoring the oncoming devastation. We won't, of course, but we could. We can. We're equipped for it. We have the technology, plants and animals and soil and money and ideas. We just need the will, both political and grassroots, which, now that I'm thinking about it and saying it out loud, it feels like quite the poignant term here. Grassroots. Anyway, my heart goes out to all of those families and communities in my region affected by this tragedy. We were spared, but a lot of people were not. So please help if you can. I'll put a link in the show notes to the Kentucky Storm Relief Fund. Appreciate you. All right, so perhaps at least one part of the solution to mitigating some of these disasters is cover cropping, if I'm allowed the usual janky transition. I have been saying I was going to talk about cover crop termination for a while, so let's do that today, maybe even a little bit all week. It's a big topic, so there's a lot to cover. So in this first segment, we're going to talk about evaluating the cover crop, i.e. figuring out how and if it's ready to die. Then in the third segment, we'll talk about how to actually do the killing of those cover crops without tillage and without herbicides. All right, so first, let's take a look at the cover crop and decide from there what the options are, because not everything is going to go perfectly to plan every year with cover crops until you really get a hang for preparing the soil and planting times and all those things. One plot we have that you can see if you're watching on YouTube is all over the place in terms of its growth, because a big portion of the cover crop that was there in the winter was killed by that super fun ice storm that we had in January. So afterward, I resowed some rye, some crimson clover, and lacy phacelia. So the growth is a bit sporadic and some weeds have taken hold. Now compare that to this other plot where the rye did fine through the winter for whatever reason. I assume the slope helped somehow, but the soil there is also just better. So that perhaps was a part of it, and just a more robust cover crop in general. And anyway, the cover crop is fairly thick and even in that spot with a nice stand of white clover in the pathways. So this first plot, the spotty one, is one where I would probably want to tarp for the weeds and just kill off the crimson clover that is still relatively young. The other plot is one I could wait until milk stage, we'll get there, and then just smash that down thoroughly because it's tall and it will die that way. Now, I will say without a proper crimping, the vetch can cause problems, and perhaps even with a proper crimping, because it won't die that easily. So if you want to just crimp it and not tarp it, but if you don't have a proper roller crimper, I might recommend avoiding the vetch in your cover crop mixes. Now, if you plan to use a tarp, you can honestly get away with crimping any cover crop a little bit earlier, especially once you get into the summer, than if you plan to just smash it down and kill it without tarping. Like if it's tall and flowering, you can pretty much stamp it down and smash it flat, and then tarp over top of it to kill it. It will just take a little longer if it's a little bit less mature, but as long as it's relatively tall, it will die. I mean, by and large, in my opinion, it's just easier to wait the extra week or so until it's at that milk stage to get a little bit more biomass out of it, and it just dies easier. Now, if there are not many or any weeds in those beds, either from last summer or currently, but it's not super thick, you will likely need to supplement the mulching effect a little bit, meaning that the cover crop alone may not suffice as a mulch unless those beds are absolutely 100% clear of any weed seeds. This is especially true in warmer, wetter regions where the cover crop will break down faster and weeds may germinate at lower depths. Now, especially for rye, milk stage is the ideal time to crimp and terminate the cover crop. I've said that term several times, so let's get to it. Milk stage is when the plant is starting to put the most energy into its seeds, but the seeds have not formed. So when you crimp the plant at this stage, it can no longer transport nutrients to the seed head, thus arresting the process and killing the plant. Milk stage comes after the flowering stage and the pollen stage. You will see seed heads form, but they will feel a little hollow. Then the flowers are little yellow things dangling down from the seed head that are soon followed by the pollen, which will fall from the plant as you tap it. Then that is followed soon thereafter by milk stage, i.e. when you can feel the seed heads filling up when you squeeze them, but instead of a hard seed, a liquid comes out, a milk, if you will. Again, that is the ideal time to terminate the rye because you have both maximized its maturity and caught it at its most vulnerable. If you go much beyond that stage, however, you have planted rye again, which may not be a big issue until the late summer, but just a heads up because, if the goal was to avoid weeds, then rye will become the weed if you wait too long to terminate it. All right, so that's the evaluation stuff. And in the third segment, we will get to the termination stuff. Make sure to put any questions you have in the comments so that I can get to those throughout the week, throughout next week. But before we get to the termination stuff, how about a question on ergonomic gardening, BRB?
If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see one underappreciated element of rye and grasses in general is bugs. Lots and lots of bugs. Love these flowers.
Today's episode is brought to you by Precip. Precip is billed as the easiest way to keep track of rainfall, and that is true, but it is a lot more than that. Sure, you can open the app and immediately see accurate rainfall totals, but you can also save locations to see historical rainfall totals, wind speeds, and all sorts of other nerdy details. Their radar-based technology means you can ditch the rain gauge. I usually have to do that anyway because the kids find a way to smash it with a baseball bat. You can ditch the rain gauge and start tracking rain and other growing conditions all on your phone. Click the link in the show notes to find out more. Today's episode is also brought to you by Farmhand. I started a CSA to grow food and build community, not to drown in admin work. Spreadsheets, emails, and pack lists take up too much time. If I could spend less time at my desk and more in the field, that'd be a win. Enter Farmhand. Farmhand automates billing, newsletters, websites, and member support, saving CSA farmers 20 plus hours a week. Focus on farming, not paperwork. See how Farmhand can help. Book a one-on-one demo with founder Ari at farmhand.partners/no-till. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions now. Today's Patreon question comes from Patreon member Lee Kossab, who writes, quote, "Hi, Jesse. You've mentioned a couple times about not being able to farm from your knees forever and generally figure out ways to do less bending over. I'm 50 and just starting my market garden/farm, so I'm definitely thinking about this too, especially after years of restaurant work." I hear that. Do you think something like the little cart in this link would be useful? The garden is a retirement project for us, and while we would like to sell some items, extreme productivity is not necessary. A privilege, I know. Lee actually posts an example of a garden work seat from Beaver that I can link in the show notes. You can see it on YouTube, but I'll link that in the show notes. Anyway, Lee goes on. The wheels are 18-inch wide, and our paths are just that wide. I'm chuckling, imagining myself scooting along on this thing, but if it works, it works, with several laughing till you cry emojis. End quote. Okay, so great question, and let's expand on this idea a little bit because gardens are annoyingly low to the ground for most of us, and last I checked, it is physically impossible to get any younger, though, of course, yoga and exercise certainly help us to feel a little younger, as does playing with kids, and Embracing Bluey is one of the greatest shows of our generation. So I have talked a bit in the past about gardening for the long haul and basically setting your gardens/farms up in a way that you can still technically do them when you're less physically capable is always the goal, because not all of us have taken care of our bodies for our entire lives, and like Lee and myself for many years, certain professions like cooking can be brutal on your knees, your neck, your back, your livers. So what can gardeners do to ease some of that tension between our bodies and our gardens? There are some infrastructural things that come to mind and some just general body maintenance things as well. On the body maintenance side, stretching, exercising, yoga, maybe, whatever it is you prefer for mobility and strength will help make this job easier, even if it feels hard to get started. That's especially true as you get older, but it is just as true when you're younger. Get in the habit of just a little stretching and exercise every single workday, or at least a few times a week if you can. Also, learn to bend properly. A slight bend at the knees before bending over will make a huge difference than just having your knees locked while you bend over. Looking at that garden seat you sent, what I don't like about it is that it's for sitting. And ask any chiropractor and they will tell you that sitting is one of the worst things you can do for your back. I almost would prefer something I could lay on, belly down, like Superman or Superwoman style. Next, on the infrastructure side, try to get as many things off the ground as you can. Obviously, for the bulk of your gardens, that may be hard, but perhaps it means building some raised beds. Perhaps it is a focus on taller crops, tree crops, things that don't require you to get up and down off the ground as much or require as much bending. Invest in wheels, wheelbarrows, carts, dollies, etc. to help move stuff around. If you're running a business, start budgeting in the cost for helpers for tasks that you can no longer do. I've said this before, but I remember years ago hearing that phrase, to farm like you're 60 or 70. In other words, don't farm like you're always going to be a limber, indestructible 20-something. I mean, who knows? For some of us, we may be fine all the way until we're 80. But everything is going to be a lot easier as you get less mobile if you farm like you're less mobile from the very beginning. Oh, and the chiropractor. I love me some chiro work, and it really does make everything easier for me. Sometimes people roll their eyes when I talk about the chiropractor, but on multiple occasions, I have gone from unable to move, maybe even unable to really get off my couch, or unable to move my neck or my shoulders or whatever, to being able to do whatever I want. So don't knock it till you rock it. On a larger scale, maybe graduating from a BCS walk-behind tractor to a sitting tractor will be a good idea for some, at least for tasks like shoveling that the BCS cannot do. Anyway, those are some thoughts, but Lee, if you do get that cart/seat or anything else like that, let us know how it went, how you like it. All right, we'll take one last quick break, and when we come back, let's kill some dang cover crops. Be right back.
Sliding since I don't remember when, in and out of consciousness.
Today's episode of Growers Daily is also brought to you by Ring of Fire. What if you could turn your brush problem into black gold? The Ring of Fire biochar kiln is your spring tool for soil transformation, converting woody debris into high-quality biochar in just hours. Biochar will kickstart your compost, retain water and nutrients in your soil, and provide habitat for beneficial microbes. Now $19.95 with flat rate shipping. Their spring sale runs through June. Don't wait to boost your soil and optimize your inputs. Visit ringoffire.earth/growers now to learn more. Also, for more information on biochar, check out the No Till Market Garden podcast interview with Kelpie Wilson, inventor of the Ring of Fire kiln, that we will link in the show notes.
Today's episode is also brought to you by FarmRaise. Still struggling with your balance sheet? Your lender's asking for a balance sheet and you're stuck with a spreadsheet mess or guessing your numbers? FarmRaise Tracks takes the stress out of farm finance. With one click, you can generate an accurate, up-to-date balance sheet that shows your assets, liabilities, and equity. No accounting degree required. You'll be ready for loan applications, tax season, or just a clearer picture of where your farm stands. Join thousands of farmers using Tracks to build stronger businesses. Get 20% off with code NOTIL20 at farmraise.com for the lifetime of your membership. All right, back to the show. All right, so in the first segment, we did the evaluation of the cover crop thing. Now, let's kill it off. I'm going to go through the two main ways to do this: crimping alone to kill a cover crop and finishing that crimping with a tarp. Crimping alone can be done without a proper roller crimper, which is specifically designed with a chevron shape, which you can see if you're watching on YouTube, which basically just is the most effective way to crimp a crop they found. But I find that if you time it right and it's just rye you're dealing with, the roller crimper is not entirely necessary. I have used the roller on my heavy power harrow to crimp rye, so long as the rye is at milk stage. I've used that power harrow with the tine spinning several inches above the ground, what I call the clobber kill, and that works pretty well as well, though it can sometimes jam the harrow, just fair warning. I've also used our flail mower, not running, just like without the PTO engaged, just literally letting it roll over the cover crop. Notably, always all the same direction. Like if you have to go all the way back around the cover crop just to make sure it's all falling the same direction. If you go back and forth, it gets messy because the cover crop you just laid down ends up kind of clogging whatever you're pushing it down with. So I prefer to just go one way the whole way on the cover crop. Or like I said, it gets messy. That's messy with a Y, not an I. That's an important distinction. If you don't have vetch mixed in, like I said, it won't easily die without a really good crimper, though sometimes even then it won't fully die. But maybe that's not an issue for the crop you're going to be putting there. I don't know. The only thing is that vetch will reseed, so you either have to hand weed it out, whatever survives, or just let it do its thing, which is fine, I guess, if you don't mind having vetch there. Now, if you plan to tarp, then it almost doesn't matter how you get it flat against the ground, so long as you are in a mildly warm region or in the mildly warm time of year. I will sometimes chop and drop. What I mean, that's just mowing a cover crop and tarp it if I want to later directly seed into that area by raking it away and then seeding. It usually takes about 3 to 4 weeks to kind of kill it, but a couple really sunny, warm weeks under tarp can do the trick as well. I've had less luck with solarizing with clear plastic, and in fact, I've run into a situation on a slight slope that I have talked about before where it actually acted as a solar oven, and it killed the crop for sure, and also cooked the soil by heating it to a really high temperature and allowing the moisture to escape through the uphill side. Not saying it won't work, just really seal those ends so you don't lose all that moisture. For crimping, I will say that I don't really use what we call like the post method, where you attach a metal post to your feet and walk down the line, like down the bed, kind of crimping the rye, just smashing it down with the bar, because it's just a lot of work in our heat. I prefer to smash it down as fast as possible, like with a power harrow or the mower or whatever, just kind of smash it to the ground and then kind of tarp it and move on. That said, you can also do that, and it's certainly satisfying to do the smash. Just get a friend and smash your cover crop down and then tarp it. But for me, it's just a lot of work and doesn't feel entirely necessary if you can just smash it down and cover it any old way. Okay, so that's the basics. Let me know what questions you all have about that or anything else cover crop related, and I can get to those throughout the week, or like I said, into next week, as we will all start our cover crop killing routines here in the Northern Hemisphere to rob them of their nutrients, because let's be honest, that's kind of what we're doing here, isn't it? Otherwise, Monday, you are done. Don't forget to cheer on Brighton this evening as they take on Liverpool and still fight for European contest. Don't forget, we are now officially a 501c3, so donations are tax deductible, greatly appreciated. You can learn more about that in our show notes. Please make sure to like and or subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out, or you can just, post it wherever you post things and be like, I love this show. It's awesome. That helps too. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at no-tillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and the team at No Till Growers. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pick up a copy of the Living Soil Handbook I wrote that one, or The Seed Farmer, the great Dan Brisebois, wrote that one at no-tillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/no-tillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of May, you get a big shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to Kim, single name, love it. Shane Hope. Ooh, that's a fun name, Shane. Laurel and C. All right, awesome. New gang of supporters here. Love it. Good stuff. So in this story, this week, we're on a ranch outside of, let's say, Plano, Texas, midsummer. The farm hands are all taking kind of the afternoon off to get through the heat, waiting for the evening to moon the cattle, not moon the cattle. They're going to move the cattle. I don't think they moon the cattle. It's inappropriate. And anyway, they're just kind of hanging out in the shade and waiting and kind of doing their thing. Probably, I don't know, whatever it is we do in Texas in the summer. And suddenly a kind of chill fills the air, and a gentle wind starts blowing in from the north, and one of them, probably Laurel, has felt this chill before. And as the dust begins to roll in, Laurel says, hang on to your hats, y'all. This is going to be quite a ride. And so for the next hour, they all kind of hunker down in their trucks, and when the storm clears, what they see outside, well, it ain't Texas. That is for tomorrow on the ranch hands. Yeah, that'll work for now. All right. Thanks for watching and or listening. We will see you then. Bye.